Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be, do you really want a girlfriend? This is an interesting topic. I've got an email success story from a guy who had always done pretty well at attracting and dating women, but his problem was he couldn't maintain it. And so like when he got to a point in his relationships where communication was really important, things would go sideways, and a short time later, they would be out of his life. And what's interesting about this email is it just reminded me, this is about a couple months before I met my English girlfriend that I wrote about in my book, who's still one of the dearest friends I have in the whole world. And some of you are going, well, why are you still friends with this girlfriend? Well, when you end a relationship with love, when you're the one that ends it, and sometimes the relationship just runs its course. Sometimes your goals and values are not aligned. In this particular case, I wrote about this and I explained it in my book. We had a great relationship. We had a great friendship above everything else, but our lives were going in different directions, and I wasn't at a place where I wanted to get married. I had started a new business, and I had no idea when it was going to take off, and she was going back to college to become a chiropractor. There was no reason. It wasn't like something where I got dumped and I was trying to get her back. It's just that, after a couple of years of dating, our goals, our values, and our life paths were kind of going in different directions. And I explained how we ended this with love. And because I always got along great with her, and she's probably the kindest, nicest woman I've ever met in my life, I was like, why wouldn't I want to keep her as a great friend throughout my life? But again, if you haven't read my book, I explain all that in detail. I'm not going to get into it in here. The only ex-girlfriends that I've kept in touch with over the years are the ones that communicate really well, that are easygoing, easy to get along with, respectful, treat me the way I want to be treated. But the ones that created drama, or they were shitty communicators, or maybe they did shitty things to me, it's like, I don't talk to them anymore. As I've gotten older, I've gotten a lot more selective about the people that I have in my life, and my circle of friends has gotten smaller, but the relationships have become a lot deeper and a lot richer. And I remember I was sitting, before I met this particular English girlfriend, I was sitting in a Tony Robbins event. I think we were like in Carmel, California. It was a Platinum Partnership event. I remember him saying, who's single here in the audience and wants a relationship? And so obviously at the time I was single, so I raised my hand with probably about maybe half the people that were there. I don't remember, it was so long ago at this point. But he says, if you wanted to be in a relationship, you would be in one. And it really got me thinking about this particular subject, because up until that point I'd been single. I think it was about almost 2 years at that point. I had dated, but nothing really serious. And when it really caused the wheels to start turning and thinking about it, and thinking about how I felt deep down. And the way I felt deep down, I was really spending time working on myself. I had things I wanted to work on, things I wanted to improve, things I wanted to change in my life before I got into another relationship. And so you'll see as we go through this email, I got a quote that I wrote on this topic. This is something that's really important. When you're ready for a relationship, when you're ready, willing, able, and open to it, the right person just magically shows up on time. It's almost like the universe FedExes that person right to you. So the quote says, if you are not in the kind of relationship that you want, or are single and tell yourself that you want a relationship but don't have one, either you have a knowledge gap that inhibits attracting the kind of person you want, or deep down, there are things you know you need to work on first before you are ready. Your feelings are your truth. If you tell yourself and others that you want a relationship but have been single for a while, the reality is that if you're really honest with yourself, you either don't feel that you are ready, or know because of a flawed approach that you are sabotaging your success. In other words, you haven't created a space for that person. When you're truly ready, willing, able, and open to a relationship, you can feel it in your heart, and you crave it. You look forward to it. Only then are you willing to do what's necessary to attract someone or change your flawed approach so you stop pushing people away. When you really truly want something to happen, you will find a way. When you don't, you'll find a way out. It's just like when it comes to my book, and for those of you that have been following me for a while, and you really like my work and it's really helped you and your friends have seen the results, it's like how many of you have told your friends about it? This great book, it'll really help you with your girlfriend or your wife, it'll help you improve your dating skills, and their eyes just kind of glaze over. Yeah, I'll get around to it. Yeah, I'm going to check that book out, and they never do. You wonder, why is that? This thing has helped me so much. It's because they're not open to it. In other words, they haven't hit the wall metaphorically. They don't feel they need it, or they're just not open to learn anything new. What's so interesting is, like, when I got into this business, I was doing research. I found out that 95% of the self-help books on dating and relationships are bought by women, only 5% by men. Now, why is that? Well, because us guys tend to be egocentric. We don't want to admit that we don't know how to do something or that our approach is flawed. I remember times walking in the office when I was still learning this stuff, I would walk in with books that I was reading, and I would have stuff wrapped around the book because I didn't want any of my employees, my partners, or people that work for me to see what the hell I was reading because, quite frankly, I was fucking embarrassed about it. And I've got many emails over the years from guys that do the same thing with my book. They wrap it around a newspaper or something else because they want to hide it from other people. Because as guys, we don't want to admit that we need help with the ladies. But it's when somebody's in a place where they're in a lot of pain, maybe they got dumped, or maybe they started dating this really great girl and things went sideways, and they want to get her back or they want to turn things around, that's when they're open to it. Just like the friends that you may have recommended my book to, and they're like, but as soon as things start going sideways in their relationship, they're like, what's the name of that book again? What's that website again? What's that dude's name again? It's just put it out there, and when they're ready, it's like as the old saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So back to the quote, as a wise person once said, it's better to be alone than in bad company. You will attract the best quality people when you are in a peak state, not a weak state. Do what's necessary to get yourself into a peak state emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically, and the right person will show up in the most unexpected way, and being together will be effortless. It's like I was talking about earlier with my English girlfriend. I had gone from making $500,000 a year at this new business. I believed that I would, within 2-3 years, I'd be right back income-wise where I was. It took like 7-8 years to get back to that place, and a lot longer in it. And when I was telling myself 6 months, things will be taken off, things will be doing better. But because I didn't feel stable in my life, the kind of relationships I was having at the time, the kind of women I was dating were more kind of casual, no strings attached type of relationships, because I really wasn't open to getting another girlfriend at the time. And it wasn't until my life became stable again and the income was stable again that I felt comfortable to do that. And because I know a lot of guys come to me, maybe they're not doing well, or maybe they're unemployed, or maybe they're not making very much money. And you got to get that part of your life, your career, your mission, your purpose figured out and handled first, because if you don't have that part of your life taken care of, it's going to be really hard to maintain a relationship when things are always going sideways. I mean, think about it. How are you going to take a girl out to dinner if you get $10 in your bank account? You're like, oh, let's get together next week. You're going to tell yourself things like that, and subconsciously, without realizing it, you're going to sabotage the relationship, and then it's just going to go sideways on you. So it's like, take care of you first. That's the most important thing. Become a catch first. You'll know because you'll feel it. So let's go through this guy's email. He says, hey, Coach, greeting from Wales. I hope you're well. I wanted to share with you my success story. I'm a 35-year-old male, and I've been working on self-improvement for the last 5 years. Up until that point, I've had numerous relationships that always went sideways, often due to apathy on my part. So I would say there's obviously a point in those relationships where you realize things weren't going well, and you had a knowledge gap, and you didn't know what to do to fix things. And us guys, one of the most important things to us in a relationship is we got to feel successful at making our woman happy. If she's happy, we take credit for it. Doesn't matter whether we had anything to do with it or not. But if she's not happy, we also take that shit personally. And when you got a knowledge gap, and the same thing tends to happen, you get to a certain stage in a relationship and it's not going well, your girl is telling you the same things that previous women that you've dated are telling you, and you really don't know how to turn it around. Eventually, at some point, you give up, and then you start to withdraw. And the more you withdraw, the more you communicate to the person that you're dating that you really don't care. You're not really into them, and you're not really into the relationship. Because women know, they're very fucking smart. They know that if you cared, you would find a way. And if you don't, you find a way out. And us guys, like I was saying, we tend to withdraw when we feel like we can't make her happy. Eventually, at some point, we just give up, and then it's just a matter of time. I mean, 75% of the time, women are the ones that end the relationship. He says the best one that I had lasted at most a couple of years. And after a particularly bad breakup with, quite frankly, a woman I should never have given the time of day to, I decided that enough was enough. So in other words, he hit the wall and he realized I'm seeing the same pattern over and over and over again, just like I talked about in my book. Every time I went out with somebody that I was really fucking into when I was in my 20s, mid, early, late 20s, even my teenage years, she'd disappear, she'd stop returning my phone calls, or I would get stuck in friend zone. And I kept seeing the same fucking pattern over and over and over again, and I kept failing over and over and over again. And it wasn't until my late 20s that I realized, and after I got out of my marriage, I realized, man, something is fucked up with my approach. There's something that I'm doing wrong, and I need to figure out what that is. And that started me on my journey, which eventually led to me learning what I learned, and I wrote about in my book. I set about learning to get the girls that I dreamt about, and over the past 5 years, I've read and largely dismissed stacks of relationship and pickup advice trying to improve. Common sense and first-hand experience has shown most of this to be utter dog turd. I mean, if you've got the time and the ability, you can learn this stuff eventually. But if you got a full-time career, maybe you're married, maybe you got kids, maybe you got an ex-wife and you got kids, and you're working just to make ends meet, you don't really have the time to go out all the time and meet new women and date lots of new women. And so that's where a book like mine can come in, because it can help you fill in your knowledge gap, because I've been through all these things. And having been successful business-wise throughout my career in life gave me time to contemplate, gave me time to think, gave me time to research, and gave me time to do trial and error that most guys just simply aren't going to have the time to do because they're too busy trying to earn a living. So I decided to work it out myself, and I improved slowly. I'm becoming pretty good at picking up pretty hot girls for casual relationships. I was having a blast, but I was ultimately unfulfilled. I wanted an exclusive relationship. That's what happens with a lot of guys that are strictly focused on pickup. Yeah, they can get a woman into bed a few times and date for a few weeks or a month or two, but it never really goes beyond that, and it always kind of fizzles out and goes the same way. And there's some guys that just like that. They like the thrill of the hunt, and there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody is different. Different strokes for different folks. Last summer, I met a beautiful petite blonde, and we shared a soul connection. Those don't happen very often. It's like, how often do you meet a new best friend? It doesn't happen every day. We began dating, and it was perfect. She said, "I love you" on week 7, and she asked to be exclusive soon after. So a lot of guys that read my book that are in that place, they learn the dating, pickup stuff, and then once things are going well and the woman's saying, "I love you," ding, Game of Thrones pinball. And by the way, if you're interested, because I've seen a lot of comments, if you're interested in the Game of Thrones pinball machine, I got mine from Game Room Guys. So if you Google Game Room Guys, you'll find it. Their customer service is great, and they got a lot of other cool stuff if you're interested in that. I thought I had it nailed. Again, a lot of guys are in that place. They're like, "Hey, I'm getting laid. She's in love with me. I don't need to read the rest of Corey's book. I don't need that relationship stuff. I got it. She's in love with me. It's good. It's easy. It's effortless. Piece of cake." However, things began to slowly turn sour after this. That's what happens to the guys that's all they do is pick up. They never learn these type of skills because they're so focused on the transaction of hanging out, having fun, and hooking up, and never really learning much beyond that. Not interacting with other people in a way that has substance. Because sex is great, beauty is great, but at the end of the day, you're going to be hanging out with somebody because you enjoy hanging out with them. At some point, you're going to have to talk and have common interests, similar goals, similar values, shared experiences. She began saying I was inattentive. When a woman feels heard and understood, the legs open. When she doesn't, the legs close, as I discuss in my audiobook. I wasn't spending much time with her, etc., and I reasoned, I'm trying to run a business in peak fucking season here, lady, and I'm still taking you out places. And he says, I know better now, facepalm. So in her way, she was trying to communicate that you weren't dating and courting her properly or opening her up. Because again, if you spend a lot of time just focusing on pickup skills and hooking up, eventually that is not enough to maintain the relationship. But she was still losing interest in attraction, and clearly I was still missing a large piece of the puzzle. Then I came across your video, What Women Really Want. And I've never looked back. I could immediately tell that this cocky Coach Corey Wayne gets it. I purchased your book, and I read it twice that day. What are you, a speed reader? That's impressive. The first section on dating correlated so closely with my own painfully gained knowledge, it further confirmed that the rest of your advice was solid and could be followed without fear. Every guy knows a certain percentage of what they need to know in order to be successful with women. If you know 60% of what you need to know, you're going to be able to maintain about a 6 out of 10 on the attraction scale that I talk about in my book. If you know 80% of what you need to know, women will see you as an 8 out of 10, but they'll never get to the point where they fall deeply head over heels in love with you. They'll say down the road after you've been together for a while, you're a great guy, and they know they should feel better about you and should be in love, but they know something's missing, and most women just can't put their finger on it. Then eventually it just goes downhill from there. It turns out that my huge knowledge gap was the latter half of the book, maintaining healthy relationships and opening my woman up emotionally. Well, that's why the beginning of the book talks more about pickup and dating, because that comes first, because if you don't get that right, you're never going to get to the point where you're actually in the relationship phase. And if you don't know the relationship skills, once you get to the relationship phase, if you only know pickup and dating skills, eventually it's going to fizzle out, just like what this guy experienced. I've since watched many of your videos, and I keep rereading your book, always finding a new tidbit of info that I hadn't fully committed to memory. Applying the knowledge learned, I was able to turn around the relationship, and the effects were immediate. I continue to apply what I've learned, and I'm improving every day. Can't thank you enough, Coach. My woman has gone from saying things like, our relationship is going okay. When you think about that, that's a fucking buzzkill. When your girl says, it's going okay, it's all right. In other words, she's saying, it's really not that fucking great. It's not what I had hoped it would be. And as us guys, we're egocentric. I mean, that's a fucking huge blow to your ego. And if you don't know what to do to make it any better, and then it continues to get worse, it ain't pleasant when it blows up on you. And another one that she said to him is, do you really want a girlfriend? She's trying to communicate, if you really cared about me and loved me, you would be treating me differently. But because women are more emotional and feelings based, they're gonna avoid saying things that are gonna hurt your feelings in hopes that you figure it out. And at the end of the day, they don't want to teach us how to be men. They want us to know that shit on our own. And if we don't know it, to take some serious corrective action, and they will give us time, but eventually they give up and they say, something's missing, can't put my finger on it, and eventually the guy gets friend zoned. To which she says, now, when are you going to put a ring on it? And my personal favorite, I used to know how high the bar was set, now I know better. That's pretty fucking impressive. So what she just told you are the best fucking boyfriend I've ever had. And especially when she's saying, when are you going to put a ring on it? In other words, she's saying, you're meeting all my needs. I'm happy. I'm ready to fucking get married. She brought it up without any prodding because he was dating and courting her properly and opening her up properly and communicating with her in the ways that I talk about in the book. Thank you, Coach, from the bottom of my heart. As we say in Wales, good health. Well, congratulations on getting your lady to fall in love and want to get married. It's up to you how long you stay with her, if you're going to get married, if you're not. Again, my job as a coach is to help you get what you want, and then it's up to you once you get that to decide if you still want it, if you want to get married, if sometimes relationships just run their course again. Different strokes for different folks. I just want people to fill in their knowledge gaps and create the lives and lifestyles that they want, because we're all unique, we're all different, we have different gifts, we have different skills, we have different talents, and we have different outcomes for our lives depending on where we're at different points in our lives. Definitely something to think about. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to go to my website, click the products tab, and book a phone coaching session or a Skype audio coaching session, and I will be happy to help you out personally. And until next time, I will talk to you soon.